Welcome to the Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families podcast with your host, David Tollner. In each episode, we'll have guests who are professionals in the special education and disability services industry who support children with special needs. The law is complex, and this podcast does not cover all situations, legal responsibilities, or variations in different circumstances. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only, and nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the firm. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace legal advice. You can find this show on all the major platforms including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, TollnerLawOffices.com. Now, here's the host of Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families, David Tollner.
All right, welcome again to another episode of Special Education Essentials. I am your host, David Tollner, and I feel very fortunate to have Julie Smith, the head of school at Stanbridge Academy, with us this morning. Welcome, Julie. Good to have you here.
Thank you, David. It's nice to be here.
Before I get started and we learn all about Stanbridge, which I can't wait for because it's one of my favorite specialty schools in NorCal. To our listeners out there, we've had a few specialty schools already on this podcast. I think that's important for two reasons. One, if you live in NorCal in particular, it's important to know that there are a lot of specialty schools here, hopefully one that fits with your child if your child is not doing well in public school, right? That's the key, is to look into your community, find what's out there, because only when you know what's around you and what's available for possible educational supports for your child can you make the right decision, right? To stay in the district and get a better IEP or potentially pull your child and put them in a program that is designed for them, right? That's what Stanbridge represents, a school that is designed for kids that fit its profile perfectly, and which we'll get into in a second. So by all means, look around your community. You may not have a Stanbridge, but you may have something very close, and that is important information. So with that message, and without further ado, Julie, tell us about Stanbridge Academy and give us a little history, if you would. I'm not sure I know the history of Stanbridge, and I would love to hear it.
So Stanbridge Academy is a K through 12 school for students with mild to moderate learning differences. We are located in San Mateo. We celebrated our 40th anniversary just 2 years ago, so 42 years.
Wow.
We've been on this site in San Mateo for about 30 of those, I believe. This is my 9th year as head of school here. So I know just a quarter of our history, but we serve students, as I said, all the way K through 12. We are a private school that is accredited by the California Association of Independent Schools and WASC, and we are also an NPS, a non-public school, certified with the state of California, K through 12. So both of those things. We serve students in typically no more than 8 students in a class. Kids who thrive at Stanbridge are kids who are able to kind of tend to that learning in a small school environment. We don't typically have one-to-one aides at our school, but there are students who have come here who have needed that in other environments. Complex learners is the other descriptor that I would put out there. So if a student, we have the resources to support kids with multiple learning disabilities. If it's a single learning disability, your child is dyslexic but socially is getting along and having, really dyslexia is their only disability, then we probably are not the right school for them. We deal with a lot of social communication challenges. So kids who have really struggled in other environments thrive at Stanbridge. And that's probably the key piece, is that we believe that schools can and should be a place where kids thrive. And if your child is not thriving, come and take a look. Take a look at our school.
No, I totally agree. The kids that I always think about when I think about Stanbridge, and the many clients that I've placed there over the years, tend to be the higher functioning kids on the spectrum, but that are socially, they have significant social deficits, right? They really struggle with social interactions. And Stanbridge is a place where they can go to school and feel like they're going to school with a lot of kids just like them, as opposed to public school where they feel or can feel very, very out of place. I remember, I'll never forget it because it really is sort of that one historic tie that I've had to Stanbridge. I had a kid many years ago, maybe at the beginning of your tenure there, and miserable at public school, right? Just bullied constantly, high functioning on the spectrum, so quirky in that way, inflexible in a way, and absolutely miserable, waking up every morning hating school, which of course affects the whole family, siblings, mom, dad, everybody. And then we were able to get the district to pay for Stanbridge and put him in Stanbridge, and a light goes on, right? Now he can't wait to get to school. Right now he goes to school and is happy all day, comes home happy, engages with instruction for the first time because he's not worried about being bullied every 3 minutes. And that change is dramatic for everybody in that family, from the siblings to mom and dad, not just the student. And that's what Stanbridge offers, from my experience, a real significant, deep, modification of everything that is important about school. And that's what happens when you take a kid who hates school and they find a school that they really enjoy.
And we teach some of those social pragmatics that a lot of students who come here may have been having that outside of school, going whether to speech therapy, someplace else, really getting some of those social skills. Here it's just embedded in our program. So it's the language. There's weekly lessons that are happening across the board, age appropriate, targeting things that are real and meaningful and happening in school. And all the adults in the community use that same language. So it just gets reinforced. You talk about engaging in the work. One of the pieces that I think makes us unique as well, we are able to really target and work with kids that have these splinter skills. So kids who are just high flying in one academic area and need to be way beyond grade level, and they have another area of academic deficit that they really need additional supports. And they're not tracked into one kind of a program, right? If they need additional supports in their language arts, that's what they're going to get. And if they're in a very high level math and science class, that's what they're going to get. And we have the ability as a small school to make that happen.
Yes, very much so. And it's that social pragmatic piece I've always thought stood out at Stanbridge for my clients that were there. And I actually have used Stanbridge often, and sometimes I'm hired to go in and improve an IEP, right? The family doesn't want to go to Stanbridge. Maybe it's too far. Maybe it's not a perfect fit. And they want to have their child stay in their local public school. And we want to fine tune that. A big piece of the fine tuning that I always bring to the equation after getting to know Stanbridge is everybody in the sphere of that student, all the adults, the teachers, the aides, everybody should be on the same page in terms of real-time social interaction facilitation, right? So that all the adults know when there's a little conflict between two kids, how to step in, how to resolve it, so that conflict not only goes away, but the next conflict doesn't happen, right? And it's that real time right there, everybody knowing what to do in that situation, that I've always believed set Stanbridge apart.
we have 2 full-time counselors, a speech language therapist. We're bringing on board an occupational therapist, a principal who oversees the academic program under me, myself. All of us are out at recess and lunch duties. And when you talk about in real time, that's when, when do those conflicts happen? When you talk to kids about what was happening, and when that you were describing this other child who came here, bullying, when was that happening? It's in those downtimes.
Yep.
So we overstaff those downtimes and have the staff that then are planning what social lessons need to happen next week, what's going on, what's that dynamic, which is, I think, really powerful for our kids.
No question. And particularly since so many of your kids struggled in that area,
Yep.
right? So that getting that ongoing training on a daily basis is huge. And we end up, and they graduate from Stanbridge far more able to manage the real world than they would otherwise, which is fantastic. Tell me about graduation and the A through G. We were talking about it a few days ago, and the kinds of certifications that kids will graduate with and where they will go after Stanbridge.
Sure. So the core of our program is an academic program culminating in a diploma. We have courses that will take kids that want to go all the way through 4 years of Spanish or to whatever level of math that you want to go to. And we have kids who have graduated directly from Stanbridge and gone to UC Santa Cruz, to Berkeley, and to state schools. We also, I will say that's not the majority of our students are not going off to 4-year colleges, but our curriculum will support that. And if it's a child who can attain that, they're able to do that. Out of the 40-year history of Stanbridge, over 75% of our students go on to some form of continuing education. So whether that's at a community college level or the state college or UC system. We also have a director of college counseling and transitions that starts working with families when they enter in 9th grade, meeting with families every year, looking at what are your goals. And they change over the course of those 4 years, but getting families to start thinking about it actually as they're exiting 8th grade, so that we're sure that we're putting them in classes that will keep doors open. Things again may change and students may decide that they want a different path. And then during the course of those 4 years in high school, they're visiting College of San Mateo, they're visiting St. Mary's, San Francisco State. And then also we have a number of colleges that actually are supportive living college experience places come to campus and share about, we do a whole college fair for kids to just begin thinking about it. That transition from high school to what comes next is, for all students, a really stressful time. Our students, one of the, anxiety is a piece that, if we look at, there's a few things that run throughout our school, and anxiety is one of those. So if you're already looking at a high anxiety time for any adolescent who is about to graduate from high school, we just put a lot of supports in place to start talking about it earlier and often, to give them some efficacy to be able to really be a part of that decision making, and it helps.
Yeah, no, of course it does. That's wonderful. And anxiety, by the way, is everywhere right now, and all not just the specialty schools, they're all having to deal with high anxiety. But public schools, it's a big factor in education right now, and particularly since COVID, it really, if you were at all struggling, and maybe even didn't know you were struggling with your emotional and mental health, COVID sort of uncovered a lot of that, and we're still seeing. I wouldn't even say the remnants of it. I'd say we're really struggling with the amount of anxiety we're seeing in education right now across the board, and we have to come up with a better plan for how to deal with that. Some good schools like yourself, to counselors are a big part of it. Lots of adult training and support. And we need to see a lot more of that in the public school systems as well, because the need is clear. Let me, I know you've just went through the what we'll call the certification process to become an NPS, a non-public school. And I believe I've talked to my audience about what that means, but I want to go over that again because it's a very important legal distinction that people should know about as they go out and find specialty schools, some of which will be certified and be NPSs and some of which will not be. And you just went through that process. You were an excellent school before that when you were uncertified, and you're an excellent school now that you're certified. So it's not that you change quality. It's although you may have a different feeling about that having just gone through the system, through the process. But tell the listeners what it was like, why you did it, and what that adds to Stanbridge. And then I'll follow up because I want to tell them what the legal ramifications are of that decision to certify.
Sure. So we were a private school for 40 years before this, and a tuition and donation based revenue, right? That those were the two sources. And as tuition continues to rise, having a desire to have our school available to a broader segment of the population, to be able to serve folks who financially would not otherwise be able to attend Stanbridge was the reason that we went through this process, to be able to serve our own families who were really struggling. And although we do give financial assistance with the cost of tuition, it's still quite a bit, especially you're considering, we're as a K through 12 school, somebody could in theory be here for 13 years. Not all students are, but many are. So that was the impetus for going through it. And basically you, as a private school, there are metrics and things that you have to do. We, as a private school accredited with the California Association of Independent Schools, that's kind of a higher level that the school had gone through. And it's and that accreditation carries with it that you've achieved those things. With the certification from the state of California, it actually allows schools to engage with you. And Dave, you'll get into what it does in that respect. What it does for the school is it requires us to meet some of the standards of public school. Now, many of the things that we do as a private school, I would argue, are of perhaps even a higher quality because we're as a small school that doesn't have to deal with all of the trappings of being part of the state of California regulations. We have the ability to provide sometimes even beyond what is being recommended. But the certification actually looks at things like credentials and making sure that everybody has a credential to teach in the area that they are teaching. It looks at ensuring, again, things that you would have to do to teach in a public school. So it puts those standards in addition, layered on. And there are things that have come up in the public school world that maybe hadn't risen in the private school world that it makes us aware of and makes us have to do training to address. So additional trainings for our staff, additional levels of scrutiny on making sure that everybody who teaches in a school, whether public or private, needs to be TB tested and fingerprinted and all of that. But it's the state looking at all of our records and saying, yes, you've done all of that, you've done it all, and putting their pass on it.
Got it. No, that makes sense. So there a touch of quality improvement is a part of that, right? Potentially, although you were an excellent school before you became certified, even if you didn't have all your teachers credentialed, it didn't mean the kids didn't make great progress there. The beauty from my perspective to a school like Stanbridge becoming certified is districts can place there directly as an IEP offer of FAPE, right? Things aren't going well in the public school, haven't for a while, no progress is being made. Everybody, including the public school IEP team, understands that a significant change needs to be made, and there's a fit at Stanbridge, let's say. that school at an IEP meeting, that school team can offer Stanbridge now on an IEP, which they could not do before you were certified as a matter of law. The significance that the listeners need to understand is that's what allows people that don't have the fund to privately pay for Stanbridge to get to Stanbridge, because we can get a district to formally place Stanbridge on an IEP is the offer of FAPE. If you, before you were certified, and in some of the other specialty schools out there that are not certified, the only way that we can get a district to reimburse, right, or to pay for that school is through a reimbursement model, which requires that the family has enough money, like it used to be at Stanbridge. They had to have enough money to get far enough down the road that when we filed, we would seek reimbursement. We could not get prospective placement because a judge could not order prospective placement other than on a comp ed analysis, which would maybe cover a couple of months typically. Now we're able to, if a child needs Stanbridge, it's clear there's no progress going on in the public school system, and we have to drive progress as a matter of law. We can get that district either by filing if we have to, or at an IEP to place at Stanbridge. And so there's no money out of pocket from the family directly, at least in theory, right? And that is that's critical for many, many families, and goes to your point of why you got certified in the first place.
Yes.
So thank you for that. If it was up to me, I'd snap my fingers and all the specialty schools would become certified so that they can all serve the socioeconomic spectrum that we have here in NorCal. All right. Anything else? Anything coming up at Stanbridge you want to talk about? Anything special before we log off?
Well, I think one of the things is also just to hone in a little bit more on the kinds of kids that we do serve. You know, we have a lot of kids who have had school avoidance in other areas. Now that we are open, you know, we initially received the certification K-8 and just went and received it for high school. Middle school and high school, a lot of kids that we see starting here are have a lot of school avoidance in other areas. Those are behaviors that we're well equipped to deal with. Students who can actually engage in the academics. I think there's actually, I'm trying to remember the page. There's something on our website that actually lists, you know, what kind of a typical student. And there isn't one picture of a typical student, but you know, being able to engage in a classroom with approximately 8 kids, having some motivation to be there, to be able to comprehend education in a variety of modalities, participate in things that are challenging and not immediately gratifying. You know, a lot of our kids really struggle. Kids who are perfectionists, who really just if they get it right away, they're willing to persist, and if they don't, they haven't quite learned that that's what learning's all about, is engaging in the stuff that's difficult and being able to ask for help when it's needed. And then kind of at the core that I want to touch on is contributing to an emotionally, physically safe environment. The reason that the child that you described felt the way that they did is that we really ensure that that we have a school full of kids who are able to contribute to that kind of an environment. So if behavior is a primary for a student, they may need another step before Stanbridge is the right place for them. It's the beauty of being a K-12. We often will see students either in elementary or early middle school who need more of a therapeutic environment initially, and then they're ready to be able to access the education and what we have going at school.
Great. And you'll do a shadow, right? You'll look at the file, what's your process? I think that's a good thing to tell our listeners. What's the process for deciding whether a child fits or not?
Great question. And it's a little different if you're looking at being privately placed or if you know that you're looking for getting an NPS placement, because because of the way that it works with school districts, they need to make the initial introduction to the school. If you're going to be placed here as an MPS, you will still have the opportunity. We review a file, take a look if we think that the profile will match what we can serve and serve well. And then a student may be invited even for just a visit before a shadow. For a lot of kids, just coming onto a campus and being able to see it in advance instead of being dropped into, you need to go and do 2 days there. So we'll do a school visit where you get to meet some folks and see the campus, and then come, and we like to do a full 2-day shadow, which gives your child a chance to really get a sense of the school, and gives us a chance to get a sense of the child as well, and see if it's a match.
Great. And you still have a lot of your kids come on the train from the South Bay. I know that a lot of people live in and around San Jose will send their kids to San Mateo and to Stanbridge. And I know they go by train, and they go, you still send down vans and pick up kids from various places? Great.
We pick up kids at the train station. We wait for the trains. It's actually a very short walk to school, but we pick them up. We bring them back to the trains in the afternoon. We have a shuttle that comes from San Francisco. If for the majority of the kids who are placed on NPS, transportation is a part of that. It's typically a part of that. We also work with families to help connect you for carpooling if that's something that's desired.
Yeah. And just so the listener understands, part of any IEP placement is the obligation to transport that child, unless that the offer of placement is your home school, right? The school nearest your home, generally speaking, in the district. Then the obligation of the district is to get your child from home to the specialty school or to the school within the district if it's outside of your home school. And that doesn't change. If they have a placement that is an IEP offer of FAPE of Stanbridge, then transportation comes with that. And it is the public school's obligation to make sure your child gets to Stanbridge and home from Stanbridge every day. Now, it doesn't mean they won't decide, and the family won't decide to put them on the train, right? There's a lot that comes with that. There's the learning how to get around, right? The independence that comes with that. And there's so many Stanbridge kids on that train. I understand friendships are born on the train ride there and back every day.
Friendship and greater independence for kids. There's a couple of students who are graduating now that in 8th grade, going into 9th, I remember having the conversation with the families around taking the train. They thought their child would never be able to do that. And some seniors met the students at the stations and rode with them that first year. Now these seniors are doing that for our next crop of students, which is, it's very lovely.
Great. Well, keep up the great work. I've been a huge fan, not just of yours, but of that school even before you got there. Just because it is done right by so many of my clients over the years, and that makes all the difference in the world. All right, everyone. I think that next week or the next episode, I'm going to go solo, and that's because I want to spend 30 to 35 minutes or so talking about what you can do over the summer to prepare for the next school year. Because that's critical time. You have some free time. Some of the files are big, and it's a time where you can review things and start to prep. And I want to give you a sense of how to do that. It is, I don't know when this will get published, but it is currently May 28th, I believe. So we're at the very end of the school year, which is always a crazy time. Everyone in education right now is at their wits' end and can't wait for summer to start. But that's also, the summertime is a time that gives us some prep time heading into the next school year. So I'll talk about that. All right, Julie, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you. And again, keep up the great work at Stanbridge. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you so much, David. Thanks for your kind words. We do have a ESY, a extended school year summer program at Stanbridge as well. Just to speaking of summer.
Right.
So
Great. If you're listening to this and you think Stanbridge might be a fit, and even if not, you're curious about it at all, contact them and take a tour. You have open houses, I'm sure, Julie, and times where the public can come in and see your program.
Yes, or we do a lot of personal tours as well.
Great. Because there's no substitute for knowing what's in your community that could possibly be available for your child. So learn everything you can and use that information to make the best educational choices you can for your child. All right. With that, we will call it a day. Again, thank you. And we'll see everybody next time on Special Education Essentials. I am your host, David Tollner. Have a great end to the school year, and we'll see you in the first couple weeks of summer. Take care.
You've been tuning in to the Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families podcast with your host, David Tollner. This podcast is not intended as legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Please talk to your legal counsel about your own situation. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, TollnerLawOffices.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.